Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go.
Hey, Enchilada Nation, really excited about the conversation today. I'm really thrilled because a lot of times you guys see this that are watching it on YouTube, you see that I'm doing it virtually, and I just happen to be in California teaching a class right now, connecting with some of my partners here. And I asked Steve if he'd spend a little bit of time with me and sit down and have a conversation. And I've just been really intrigued ever since I met you. I think it's been almost 2 years ago that we met. And being a huge fan of the American Gladiators growing up, and in my neighborhood full of boys, we would watch the show and then we'd go set up the courses and pretend to be American Gladiators, which I'm sure that's true for like a lot of kids my age across the country.
It is.
But Steve was the tower on American Gladiators, former Mr. America, which a lot of you know that I have a little bit of a bodybuilding background, but not near Mr. America, but I'm just so intrigued with that sport. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But you have all these accolades in the fitness world, but you're also an incredible entrepreneur, businessman. I know that you have a lot of family relationships, so very much in alignment with the branding of the Whole Enchilada. Yep. So let's jump into this conversation with Steve Henneberry. And I want to start with what else, besides what we just talked about, should everyone know about you before we get into the conversation?
Oh, gosh, what else? Well, first of all, thanks, Marcus, for having me on your podcast here. It's actually an honor because, like you said, we've known each other for 2 years, and Terry, my wife, and I, we just think the world of you and what you do and how you present. You show up all the time, very, very prepared and with great information. So I want to commend you for that.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot coming from
so
you
what
guys.
do you want me to tell people that they don't know about me already? We love to ride at Harleys, at 62 now, still trying to stay in shape, training for the Masters Mr. America coming up. My wife and I we compete together, so that makes it fun. And I just want to do well in the real estate business so I can enjoy the better life with my grandkids.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny to hear you say I'm trying to stay in shape. If any of you are watching this on video, Steve makes me look like a small guy. Look at those look at those arms. I'm not even gonna flex next to that. That's awesome. Grandkids, how many grandkids do you have?
We got 2 grandkids, 6 and 3. Yeah,
fun.
And so we try to get to see them as much as we can. They're in Colorado.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, and we just had them out last week. Flew them out to do swim lessons. So it's important that they learn how to swim.
Yeah,
and so I had a blast doing that.
That's awesome. Well, I know that with you and Terry, I see pictures of you guys riding your Harleys together. I just laugh thinking of you guys showing up with some biker bars in anywhere USA, walking in and having everyone be like, okay, holy crap, don't mess with those guys.
Most of the time, you go into these biker bars or these strange little dive bars that, everyone's really cool.
Yeah.
We're not there to brawl. We're not there to do anything.
Yeah.
We're just there to have a beer or a drink and get to see meet the locals.
Yeah.
I'm not a fighter that way. It's like I don't go look for it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. One thing I've found is sometimes the most intimidating looking people are like the kindest, like the ones that aren't out looking for it and shaking it up. They're the ones that are like they'll step into it if they need to, but for the most part, they're sort of really kind, good human beings.
Well, it's usually the little guys that want to prove themselves to the big person in front of their friends. Yeah. They're mouthing off. They make obnoxious comments, and over the years, Marcus, I've been able to just learn to just have blinders on and let those comments deflect off me. Like you said, if I have to for my family or they're hurting me personally, if they step into my boundaries, yes, I'm going to take care of the situation. Yeah. But most part, I just let it deflect because quite frankly, they're flapping their mouth.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I mean, and you're a heck of a martial artist. Yeah. You're like a loaded weapon. I mean, if you had to, you could. Knock someone out just like that, So, and I'm sure you want to, but you can't.
I laugh. And I'm sure you have people in your world like this too. But back in the high school days, I had this buddy of mine that was such a fun, good guy. But anytime that we went anywhere, he got so mouthy and knew that Marcus will back me up if he needs to. And I'm just I kept being like, please, just don't start anything tonight. I don't want to do anything, but. Just funny being that guy.
It's funny because back in when we were doing the American Gladiator live tour, we did 152 cities around the country. Yeah. And we were like rolling rock stars. pulling into these cities with tour buses, and it got to the point where the fan base they were following us from city to city to city.
So cool.
And and we'd be out just having fun, and someone would want to start a fight with us just to prove themselves. Yeah.
Oh man.
My good buddy Laser and Nitro, and those guys are both fighters, and they love one's from Montana, one's from up in San Jose area, so they just love to fight. I'm like, oh, not again,
That's funny.
But it used to be always indicator when the vein used to come out on Laser's forehead, I knew it was going to go down.
That's funny because it was so fun watching a recent documentary came out in regards to the American Gladiators, which was so intriguing to see some of the behind the scenes stuff and kind of how that group came together. It was like this kind of mismatched group. Yeah. And it was kind of at a time where, Muscle Mania was kind of hitting the mainstream on the tail end of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu and stuff coming in. And I know you came in kind of on, I think it was kind of their era, and then Lee Priest, and then your era kind of came in and led the way and set the stage for like Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, and those guys behind you. But it was such an interesting time, I think, where Muscle Mania was kind of like becoming this scene in America. So as you were already in that scene, what first drew you to the bodybuilding world? Because I know it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get big so I can go be an American Gladiator, or even maybe it wasn't even at the time like I want to go be Mr. America, but like what was the introduction into the bodybuilding world, and then how did that evolve into like setting some big goals in that space?
Well, it's funny that you say that because at 16, I did say I wanted to be Mr. America.
Oh, really?
At 16, I can remember I bought my very first, in 1979, I bought my very first Muscle Fitness magazine.
Okay.
And Gary Leonard was on the cover of that, and he had just won the Mr. America.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at this magazine, Marcus, and saying, God, what would it be like to be this guy?
Yeah.
So cool. I mean, I was about that big around too,
Oh,
so
really?
I mean, I could stand behind a telephone pole, you couldn't see me.
Oh, how funny.
But something inside of me just said, I'm going to give myself 10 years to be that guy.
That's awesome.
And so I set that goal, and I didn't share that with a lot of people because, I was brought up on a farm back in Wisconsin, and, my dad didn't understand me wanting to always go into the gym and train, where he said, why don't I just go down and shovel the stalls and throw some hay bales, and that'd be my workout.
Yeah.
And he didn't know that I had to do specific training.
Yeah.
And so it was difficult for me because I didn't have the support. Nowadays, kids have personal trainers at 12,
Right.
and they groom athletes. And so anything that I learned about it, I learned through encyclopedias. Mm-hmm. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, if you think about what's at our hands and how blessed the youth or the society is today with the internet, versus back then in the 70s when you had to, if you want to learn something, you either read it in a newspaper or you read it in an encyclopedia.
Yeah. Had Arnold published his Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding yet at that point?
I don't. If he did, I didn't know about it. So I trained. I knew I had won some contests. I won the Mr. Wisconsin to qualify me for the Mr. America, and I knew I was headed in the right direction. But I knew ultimately I needed to be in California.
Okay. So how many years was it on that journey from I'm a beanpole, but I want to be Mr. America, to you winning Mr. Wisconsin?
1986 is when I won that. So so it was at 7 years.
Oh, so 7 years of a 10-year journey.
Yep.
So before you say the move to California, one point I want to point out to the listeners, I don't know if they caught that, but the fact that you made a 10-year goal of like, I want to accomplish this and I want to accomplish it in 10 years. I think we live in a world where, like, how many people are actually setting 10-year out goals? I think they're saying, someday I want to be rich, someday I want to do these things, but they're like almost these like just these random statements of someday I want this, but an actual, when was the last time someone actually sat down and said, like, in a decade, I'm going to accomplish this? And every goal before that, like for you, if it was Mr. America, it's, okay, first I've got to win a local show, then I've got to qualify for Mr. Wisconsin. If I win that, that's a stepping stone towards that, right? So I think that's interesting, that the concept of you weren't already down that space, but recognizing you needed a decade to accomplish it is pretty stellar.
Well, again, it was one of those things where I just looked at that and I was mesmerized. Yeah. And I knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. Yeah. So I said, okay, I think I can do this in 10 years. Yeah. And so getting to California was my step towards my 10-year goal.
Okay.
You know, I met some people that are associated with Gold's Gym. I was able to get a job at the Gold's Gym and was able to work and train and be around, you know, top-minded people in the industry.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to go to Worcester, Massachusetts in September 15th of 1989. And, you know, I came home with the first place trophy. And I mean, again, my parents didn't come to that.
Really?
You know, and none of them, I had no, because they couldn't comprehend what my goal was.
Yeah.
They said, I remember leaving Wisconsin, my dad looked me in the eyes, Marcus, and said, "You're wasting your time. You'll never make a dime with weightlifting."
So did that cause questions in your brain, or did that actually fire you up?
Oh, it fired me up, Marcus. If anyone tells me I can't do something, I'm going to do it 10 times better.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way I tick.
Yeah.
So
I'm that way too. It's just, it's interesting that some people, just that one comment could have instantly erased other things that now are on your resume. Had you reacted differently to that statement?
Correct. Yeah, so moved out here, won America, was at a photo shoot for Muscle Fitness magazine, a cover shot for them. And I remember the photographer saying, "Hey, you know, you're in great shape right now. You know, they're holding auditions for this new show." And he hands me a VHS tape. And I was living in San Diego at the time, and we're shooting up in Woodland Hill at Joe Weider's headquarters. And I remember, you know, looking at the VHS tape, threw it in my gym bag, and I got home, and it was late, and I got home and I popped it in. I go, "Oh, this is a stupid show. What in the world would I want to do this for?"
Yeah.
And but something inside of me said, "Steve, get your butt up to LA and try," because it was tomorrow. It was the next day.
Oh, it was the next day.
Very next day. So I packed my cooler and got in the car, and it was up in there. I think the call was at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
But I remember pulling up to Universal Studios and seeing the line wrapped around the corner of every bodybuilder in California or the country was there. And I'm thinking, "Oh, this is crazy. What am I doing here?"
Yeah.
I mean, I was doubting myself.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, Steve, just stick it out and just, you know, get through it." So the first three things that you had to be able to do to get to the next level is you had to run a 40-yard dash under 5 seconds. You got to do 30 pull-ups under a minute, and then you had to climb a rope under a minute, which is, you know, so that eliminated.
Which just, I think, is in a lot of ways a small man's game, right? You think about, I look at you people that are in shape. There's different types of shape. For a big man, hit those numbers is different than a small guy.
You're absolutely right. So, but that eliminated probably 3/4 of those three events, believe it or not, eliminated probably 3/4 of the people that were in line.
Okay.
Because again, bodybuilders have always been stereotyped as non-athletes.
Yep.
Okay. But me, when I train, I mean, I was an athlete before I started training. I mean, I wasn't that top-notch, superior first, you know, a 5-star recruit come out of high school athlete, but I was okay.
Yeah.
I was a late bloomer. You know, I remember going in as a freshman, I didn't have hair on my face.
Yeah.
You know, and you walk in, I remember seeing these kids with full beards. I'm thinking, what is going on here? You know? But it was great that I was a late bloomer because I had time to mature myself physically.
Yeah.
Really. And so I ran a 4.840 at 3:05. Did the pull-ups, did the climbing the rope, and so I went to the next round. The next round I was meeting the producers and directors.
Yeah.
And I remember standing there, and it was like yesterday. I remember standing in front of this whole row of table, this people that were there, and I didn't know them from Adam.
Yeah.
And they go, "Why should we choose you?" That was their first question.
Okay.
And I didn't say this being cocky, but I just said, "Look around. What do you guys see?" And you see them just like looking around and go, "We don't understand your question." I says, "What do you see here?" They're looking, we don't get your question.
Yeah.
I says, "Everyone here is this tall."
Yeah.
I says, "I'm this tall." I says, "And I want to be the tower."
Yeah.
And they go, "You can go over here."
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to how I stood out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of being what we do today.
Yeah.
Is how do you stand out in the real estate business?
Yeah.
So I learned that back then.
Yeah.
How to stand out and be different and be noticed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got hired on as an alternate, as you heard on the documentary, and the second season, won the Gladiator. And it sucks being an alternate because of course, you want your opportunity to get in there and go. But in order for me to get that opportunity, one of your teammates has to go down.
Yeah.
So it's like you're there. They want you on set. And everyone feels like, oh, no, Tower's just waiting for one of us to get hurt to get in here.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I am, but I don't want you to get hurt. So it was like,
how funny.
So I remember getting a call. Unfortunately, Turbo went down just with a horrific knee injury, and it was just awful. And so I had my opportunity, and I remember the first day on my set, they came and knocked at my dressing room door, and they said, "Hey, Tower, we need you on set." I'm like, "Oh God, this is my first day, you know." So I get ready and I walk out. I literally ran out and I run right into Arnold Schwarzenegger. Boom, we hit each other. We actually hit each other.
Yeah.
He looked at me, and I looked at him, and I'm like, "Oh, jeez." And he goes, "You that big guy on the cover of the magazine right now." He goes, "You look good." He goes, "Come." He goes, "Let's go talk." And I look at him. Now, a stage manager is going, "Tower, come on, we need you." And I says, "Arnold, can I come back?" And I'm telling Arnold, I'm putting Arnold off.
You're going to hold off on it.
So he says, "Come back later when you're done."
Yeah.
So the whole time, on my first day, I'm thinking, Arnold wants to see me, And he was just my idol growing up, And I looked at it, I put my posing routines together out of clipped out pictures of Arnold, with his famous poses.
Oh yeah.
So I remember going over there, knocking on his dressing room, and he lets me in, and he goes, "Sit." He goes, "You want a cigar?"
Yeah.
And I go, "No, I'm still working. I'm good." He goes, "Bodybuilding, good, but become a household name. Get out of bodybuilding."
Yeah.
And I look at him. He goes, "Become a household name."
Yeah.
And that never resonated with me until 2 years later. Our show was the #1 syndicated show in the world.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly what Arnold was telling me. And then through that communication with Arnold and him guiding me that way, we became good friends. And I had the pleasure to travel all over the country with him on doing different Planet Hollywood grand openings.
Yeah.
And riding Harleys together. We rode from Orange County down to San Diego one time on the Harleys.
Yeah.
And we were in Maui together for the Planet Hollywood grand opening. And he just was always just a guy just funnier than all get out.
Yeah.
But always have positive information to give you.
Yeah.
He cares about people.
Yeah, so cool.
So I got to say that, that was my light bulb that went off, is become a household name.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does Gary say in the Red Book? Become a household, become that in the proverbial portion of your brain, of the consumer's brain, to be that person.
Yeah.
Become that household name.
Yeah. Because the consumer has so many choices.
Correct.
I think the analogy or the visual you painted of pulling up for the audition and seeing the line of people around the studio waiting to go in and give their shop. I imagine the producers asked the same question to every single person coming in, and I bet they were just like sick of hearing the same answers over and over and over.
Because I'm the biggest, or I got the biggest biceps, or whatever it may
whatever
be.
it is. Yeah, but probably a lot of those answers just started sounding like, "Oh, we heard that again. We heard that again." So I love that you took an approach of like, because obviously you got you probably had bigger arms than the rest of them. You probably could lift more weights than the rest of them that you could have leaned on.
Yeah.
But you started with, what is the thing that is obviously that I'm showing up differently, and then everything else that you had was the complete package. Was like, all of this speaks for itself. Right. But let me point out the thing different. So I think that's really interesting and very applicable to us in business right now. Business, I tell people right now, like, business is not getting easier, and I don't care what field you're in. If you're an entrepreneur, business is more challenging just because of the pace of the world than it's ever been before. Mm-hmm. And the way the consumer is just looking at the services, the products they need, and how quickly they can change from one service to the product. You have to be that clear on what is my differentiator, and can I say it quickly and accurately to set myself apart.
Right. So, after I retired from the Gladiators, I said to myself, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? Yep. So I dabbled in the entertainment industry. I did, 20 to 30 national TV commercials and episodic stuff on Bold and the Beautiful, Knots Landing, Married with Children, shot movies, and really that wasn't what I wanted to do, because I didn't come out here to be an actor. Yeah, it's not what I really wanted to do, and had an opportunity to get in the title and escrow business, and. Again, just didn't know anything about title and escrow, but I knew that this gentleman made a ton of money, and he was really good at it. That was giving me the opportunity. And I remember the first day on the job there, he handed me a rate book, a title rate book, and a box of business cards. And he says, "Here, what am I supposed to do with this?" He goes, "Go see people." Well, who am I supposed to go see? He goes, "You'll figure it out."
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a thick
that
training
was,
manual.
yeah, that was, so that was my introduction. And I knew that, okay, let's think, who's my customer here? Okay, realtors and lenders.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's who I need to go see. What area am I going to work? Well, you wanted me on the west side of Los Angeles, so I knew that started in Malibu all the way up to Santa Monica.
Okay.
And I says, okay, I can do this. And just slowly started making my blueprint down there, as a title rep. Became, a $1 million producer with them.
Wow.
With the title company, and worked my way up from a sales manager all the way up to the county manager and the area vice president.
Oh wow!
So
Holy smokes.
over years, and then it just, I said I'm helping realtors make a ton of money because my approach how to be different was, hey, you got a title order for me. I didn't ask that question. Never asked that question ever. I'd ask them questions. How's your marketing working out for you? What are you guys doing to stand out from all the other agents out there?
Yeah.
Well, why do you ask? I said, well, I have a marketing background and I know a lot about marketing.
Yeah.
I said, let me take a look at your brand. So what I did is I created brands for realtors.
Mm-hmm. Because you started a company called Huckleberry Designs or something
Correct.
as well? Okay.
HD print.
Was that in response to you realizing that people were bringing you to the table to close that gap for
Yep.
me? Interesting.
So I offered this value, and we talked about value propositions today.
Yep.
So I offered this value to a realtor that has other title reps that they can work with.
Yep.
But are they doing what I'm doing to help them make more money?
Brilliant.
And that worked for me.
Yeah.
Then I even created a print company. So I was able to print at wholesale cost. Now I didn't give it to them, but a stack of postcards that would normally cost $150, they were getting for $79.
Yeah.
So it was value to them, because we were getting something consumable, but at a discounted price.
Yeah.
So that was my shoe in. It was just, I escaped in, and people were going, well, how does this guy get his business?
Yeah.
Oh, he's printing for him. Well, it came down to the point where I wasn't printing for free.
Yeah.
But I took over there's agents in this office today that are still using the logo that I created for them.
If you are enjoying this conversation, please, who do you know that you can share this episode with today that will find value in it and would also like to join us on our journey to become the best version of ourselves? And don't forget, please like and subscribe because this helps me get in front of more people just like you to continue to grow our network and our Enchilada Nation. Thanks again. Let's get back to the episode.
So I think there's a really important point that it has a lot to do with the conversation we were having earlier today about this idea of how do you bring value to the table to the consumer differently than anybody else and earlier than anybody else. Right. So like in that scenario, when you were in the title business, it was every other title company in town was saying like, hey, I will take you through the title and escrow process and solve this problem for you.
Right.
Where you were saying, hey, for you to get to the closing table, you need clients. For you to get clients, you have to have better marketing. Let me solve this problem for you. And because I solved this early problem for you, you'll also use me to solve this problem for you when that time comes.
Correct.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs right now is we get so focused on the end product or service that we offer that we're expecting the consumer to just show up at that decision point when there's so many pre-decisions that have to have happened to get to that bigger decision. It's how do we get involved back here, which I think that I'm coaching this strategy now, and you were doing this a long time ago.
Right, and it used to come out all the time. It's like, when I meet with a new agent, hey, what can I do to help your business? You got tickets for Laker game. And that's what these other title reps were doing is they were buying them with tickets.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, Marcus, I'd love to be able to, I can get you tickets. Our office has tickets. I said, but wouldn't you rather close more deals and we can buy our tickets ourselves?
Yeah.
Let's close more deals and we'll buy tickets, amazing tickets.
Yeah.
And they'd sit there and look at me and go, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
And I said, well, let me take a look at your marketing stuff. Do you have a brand? Is your stuff consistent? When people look at you, can they identify who that agent is?
Yeah.
I said, because agents, they fling stuff all over the place to see if it works. And then, there's no consistency, Yeah. And today, as an agent, my Big H Homes, that's all my brand is my H.
Yeah.
My picture is not on there. My signs, when people drive by, they go, oh, that's that Steve Henneberry from Big H Homes.
Yeah.
My picture's not on there, but they know it by my brand.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, the swoosh for Nike's worked. The McDonald's Golden Arches has worked because of the brand recognition.
Yeah. And I think that, speaking of brand recognition, I love that you have that branding piece, but I love that you haven't like ignored your history and your success rate. You've combined those pieces to some extent, right? Like I even watched one of the recent commercials you put together where I think if I remember right, in the beginning of the commercial, you almost remind the consumer of like, you may recognize me as the tower from American Gladiators or something like that in the front end of it, and then moved into like that transition. So I love that idea of like not ignoring your history of your success record, but it's almost like proving, look what I've done, and you're going to expect the same thing from me here. Right. So what was that thought process or transition like, just to hold on to that branding piece? Because I'm sure some standard marketers were like, hey, let's start from scratch, ignore that will turn some consumers away, where instead you leaned into it.
Well, again, back to Gary Keller, I was saying, how do you stand out from everyone else? In Southern California alone, there's over 275,000 realtors. Yeah. And it kind of scared me when I got my license. I'm thinking, oh, geez, how am I going to, be different and unique? And I created this, the Real Fit Realtor slogan, and I'll find you the perfect fit home. Yeah. And I tried to stay away from the tower in the beginning, only because Terry, my wife, said, just be who you are, and people will work with you. Yeah. Well, I started working a little bit with Cody Gibson, as a coach. Yep. And I remember Cody, at one of our sessions, he goes, do your homework assignment is to post, change your profile picture to one of your Gladiator pictures. He goes, let's talk next week when we talk. So I posted it, and my social media just blew up. Yeah. Blew up. And so I said, hey, Cody, it blew up. He goes, okay. He goes, now I want you to do this, this, and this in reference to the Gladiators. Yeah. And he was on to something. Yeah. So people still wanted to see and hear of what I used to do. Yeah. And so we created the Fit Tips now, the Big H Homes Fit Tips. Yeah. Where Terry and I go into the Gold's Gym, and we create these different 90-second fit tips for a particular movement. Yep. But talk about the importance of form and technique. Yeah. Okay. And then always close in with letting people know who I am and what I do. Yeah. Those are phenomenal. I mean, I get more people that call me off those fit tips that I post on social media. Yeah. So I post one of those fit tips a week. Throughout the year. Yeah. Okay. And during COVID, because we couldn't get into gyms, we even did some at-home fit tips, training at-home type fit tips and stuff like that. But what it does is it sets me apart from all the other realtors that are doing a video in front of a house. Yeah. Or begging for the next listing. Never once asked in my fit tips. Yeah. I'm of value to them now. Yeah. Well, they're consuming
that value, and it's such an easy consumable for them, because obviously it's going to be somebody that cares about fitness, which is okay because they're in alignment with your brand and who you are. So when Terry was saying be who you are, that's who you are. But I love the idea of it creates such an easy consumable value for them that is non-committal. Right. So the only thing they have to commit is that 3 minutes to watch the video, but then they're in this pattern of consuming value from you. So then when it comes time for a bigger consumable, there's a pattern of like, oh, I've consistently got value here, so I can expect value in a bigger piece. So I think that's such a brilliant play. So those fit tips are a huge part of my, what I do. Yep. And then Cody, so we can show you later. I'll show you later. My listing book is my 30 years in the business, hardbound on the cover of a book. Yeah. So when I walk into a listing appointment with this book, these people, it's hilarious. They look at the book, they look at me, they look at the book. I knew we knew you from somewhere. Yeah. And I just couldn't. I didn't know if you're a football player or this, but oh my gosh, we used to watch the show, same response that you had. And my comment to them is always, well, you let me into your household then, into your living room then, why not right now? Brilliant. And they go, come on in, So it's like we've already got the awkwardness done. Conversation's already starting. Yeah. What was it like doing this show? Yeah. We're not even talking about listing his house yet, our real estate. You're building a relationship. We're building a relationship. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. I love you've hit a couple lines that are just brilliantly put together of like, you let me into your household then, now you're letting me into your household now. The other one I love is that the fit realtor, let me find the perfect fit for you, where it's like a combination. Like there's so many little things like that people try to separate their personal hobbies, their personal passions, thinking the consumer doesn't care about those. They only care about the service you're bringing. But the world we live in is they want to connect with the person they're trusting. If it's really, they're going to trust somebody to deliver a value for them or a service or a product for them, that trust is often built through that connectivity before the actual transaction.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's interesting because then people always, and then when you go back to their house, and I love going first on listing appointments because my book stays with them.
Yeah.
So can you imagine the next realtor comes in and sees my book, and that book stays on their coffee table.
Yeah.
And and even through the open houses, my book is on their coffee. They're proud of that book.
Yeah, that's cool.
And and people that are coming through the open house, they stop and they pick up the book and they look at it. They look at me. And so it's conversation without
awesome.
have to force and getting to know you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the next step is wearing your American Gladiator singlet at the open house.
Or maybe my jacket.
Yeah.
Maybe I can wear my Gladiator jacket.
I remember like the Letterman type jackets. Those are cool.
So, but yeah, it's listen, this business it's easy, but it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, but sometimes people overthink it.
Yeah.
And once they start overthinking of it, they start trying all these different little tools because they're thinking that the next shiny object, as you talked about today. Yeah. Stick with your plan. Yeah. Stick with it and run it and do it. I mean, how many times do you think Tiger Woods, as a youth, hit a golf ball? Oh, wow. How many times did Peyton Manning throw a football through a tire? Yeah. I mean, it's consistent. I say that your success is commitment and staying consistent. Mm-hmm. If you make a commitment, okay, which I did at 16 years old, what made my success was my consistency. Yeah, I broke dates. I didn't because I had to train the next morning. I didn't drink. I didn't go out party with all my friends when they were. Yeah, because I wanted to stay consistent to my plan. Yeah. Yeah, as you're saying that, I think that's a really important point. I honestly think if we lined up 100 entrepreneurs and pulled out their business plans and asked, are you committed to this goal? They'd all say, yes, I'm committed to the goal. I wrote it down. But I think consistency, consistent actions is actually the proof of your commitment. Yeah. Saying you're committed without a track record of consistency is just words on a paper. But I think consistently showing up is the true measure of that commitment, which I think you nailed that. Another thing too is I always realize not to just business. Commitment and consistency carries on to life. Kids. Yeah. Raising kids, you have to commit to being a good parent, and then you have to stay consistent with them. Yeah. Your marriage, your relationships, you have to commit, and you have to stay consistent with that. Yeah. So it parlays not just into your business world, but in life. Yeah. Whether it's you have to commit to a religion, you have to stay consistent to it. Yeah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and everything. So if people would just figure that out, and how to overcome their shiny out the squirrels over here. And just stay laser focused. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I'm laser focused. It's actually when I'm training for a contest, Marcus, my numbers go up. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Interesting. My numbers go up. My productivity goes up. I can do more. It's like I'm laser focused and I'm dialed in. And I'm training twice a day. I'm eating 6 times a day. But my numbers go up. Yeah. Go explain that one. Yeah, I actually think that's, and I've seen that show up in my own life. Anytime that I'm getting serious enough about one area of my life that I'm tracking, I've got a game plan. I think just that you can't be. It's really difficult to be disciplined in one area of your life and undisciplined in another. I think that discipline in one area overfloweth into others. So it's interesting as you say that is anytime I tune up my diet, anytime I take on a new challenge, I do see it flood over into other things, which I think is a great lesson for people to learn. Because sometimes I think for a lot of people, health is a hard thing for them to tackle, right? They just don't have a history of it. They don't have a passion around it. I honestly think that if they got really committed to taking their business to the next level with the intent of stacking up health behind it, would make changing their health easier than if they just try to change their health on their own. Correct. Yeah, because again, it's mind blowing how you know, the minute you start being soft in other parts of your life, or cheating on your diet, or not making the calls on your, you know, for prospecting, it just, everything kind of spills out, shows up in a negative in other parts of your life. You know, you start, you know, maybe staying away from the house longer than you're supposed to, because, you know, I mean, there's just so many things to happen. But when you're laser focused, you stay committed to what the end goal is. That's for me personally. I mean, and it sounds like it works for you as well. And so it's if people would just stay, instead of worrying about the shiny object. You know, and just working towards, you know, and again, it might not be a financial goal, it might be just a personal goal. Maybe they want to run a marathon. You know, stick to that goal. Okay, if you're going to commit to that marathon, then what is it going to take to get 26 and a half miles?
It starts with one.
Exactly.
I think that's interesting. Is it's been really fun to hear some of your history, and it's the thing I like about it is it's there's several big wins stacked up that you worked hard for. It reminded me, it just had this pop into my mind. The other day I was driving my 15-year-old daughter Lucy to work. She's a lifeguard at Cherry Hill, a local water park near where I live. And we just got into this really interesting conversation where she was talking about how some of the other lifeguards are just kind of like, they're there, but they're not really making an effort. And I took the opportunity to tell Lucy, I'm like, hey, who are the most successful people in the world right now? And she threw out names like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and a couple other people. And I was like, well, I can guarantee you when they were 15, they were the best lifeguard or whatever it was they were doing at that time. Like, and I took the opportunity to be like, most successful people, it wasn't that they show up at the end and all of a sudden become successful in that one thing. It's being successful at all of the things leading up to it. And that conversation popped in my head as I look at your resume of like that moment that you were a beanpole making a decade goal to become Mr. America, working that backwards to say, here's the things I need to accomplish, and stacking up those wins and the opportunities that it lined up for you that you didn't know about when you were that tall beanpole that hadn't put on any muscles, but you earned the right to those new opportunities because of the commitment and the wins you were slowly stacking up.
Right. And in the sport of bodybuilding, as you know, isn't one that you're just going to wake up one day and say, I want to get on stage. Or, you know, just like, or running a marathon is not something you're going to wake up one day and say, I'm going to run a marathon next week. You know, it takes time to train and get to the stage or the running course. So, I mean, I think what I chose and for the time frame I chose was perfect. But it's just like that in business. I mean, a new agent's not going to just come in and say, you know, I want to be a $10 million producer. It takes time. You know, it takes time to deal to get 10 million, then 20 million, and then 30 million. But if it goes back to how do you get to that first 10 million? It's doing the work, setting a goal, doing the work consistently, and then plugging along. And once you get to that 10 million, don't quit. Because so many people put the brakes on. You know, oh, I got to close it. I'm good. You know, it's no. You got to replenish. One thing I learned in the title business: you're only as good as your last month.
That is right.
Because you know the numbers. You're at zero on the first of every month. I'm at zero for my closings. So you know, I got to replenish what I had last month and do better.
So speaking of not putting the brakes on, you're training for. Is it senior Mr. America?
The Masters.
Masters.
Yeah, Masters. So I'm in this. Terry and I both are in the 60 and over class.
Okay, awesome.
So and you'd be surprised the people that are still in shape. You know, at 60, and
it is insane how great a shape people are in at that age now.
Yeah, you know, but Terry and I chuckle about it because again, we don't, you know, my bucket list is to have my pro card. You just say I got my pro card. You know, it's not. I'm not going to become a professional bodybuilder. I mean, I don't want to go on and compete for money or like that. I just want to say I have that. But it's interesting when you're backstage, you know, at these events because we both have placed second in this event, so we're super close. Man. We're right there. And but you look at these people, all they do is train. They don't have, you know, most of them are retired. You know, when Terry and I look at our lives, you know, Terry runs 3 market centers, multiple businesses. I help out with all those market centers, and I run my business, and you know we try to have our grandkids in our life, and so you know we're juggling, and you know multiple things. We don't just have and the bodybuilding just happens to be part of our regimen.
Yep.
It's not our life.
Yep. Because some of those people get sucked into where it is the only thing. And everything else in their life is suffering.
And I think another thing too, Marcus, is balance.
Yeah.
Even though we're competing for a contest, we don't hibernate.
Yeah.
We can choose what to eat when we go out.
Yeah.
In today's world, you can order anything healthy just about in 99% of every restaurant out there.
Yeah.
So we choose to do this sport or this competition.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a negative barrier. I don't want any, when we go out, I don't want people to like, oh, so sorry you can't eat. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I eat more than you eat probably in 1 week and 1 day.
Yeah.
So I'm not starving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the balance I'm talking about is just so you have social, engagement with other people. And so same thing with business. You got to have balance in your business.
Yeah.
You can't just be so focused and just be, kind of just robotic about it.
Yeah.
You got to have the balance and maybe sometimes take an afternoon off, and enjoy life.
Yeah.
And recharge, the energy what it's going to take, because it's called the burnout.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, that's the whole premise behind the whole enchilada, is this idea of like, how do you live a purposeful, disciplined life across multiple platforms? Because I do think people can get too consumed in one of the categories or one of the areas. And there's times you have to swing out of balance a little bit. Yep. But for the most part, like if you are purposeful with it, you can elevate one segment of your life. And if you're doing it right, the other segments of your life should elevate with it, right? And then you can recognize which ones might need a little more attention at different times. So I think you guys have done that beautifully, and I think that's a great point to kind of wrap up on. Is there anything to kind of wrap up, anything last comments or thought processes that you want to share with the community before we wrap up our conversation?
Well, you can find me at Big H Homes.
Beautiful.
And follow, and share all my stuff.
Yep.
I appreciate that, and working on a project right now. Since the documentary came out, Netflix producers came to me and said that we like the message that you give out there. So I came up with this idea about a show that's basically. That guy Ferrari where he does dives, diners, and drive-ins?
Yeah.
Well, a show about gyms.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's basically, kind of the working title right now, potentially it could be this, the last of the great American gyms.
Yeah.
Basically going around and showcasing not the 24-hour fitnesses or the life fitnesses, but these hole-in-the-wall gyms.
Yeah.
And how have they stayed in business all these years? What do they do? What's the draw?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I've done a little research in this, and there's hundreds of these gyms still in existence. And and then there's story behind it. Like the one I called in New Jersey, the lady was telling me that they've been there 59 years in this location, and the mob bouncers, the mob people used to train there.
Oh, yeah.
They had keys to come in the evenings to train. Just a
interesting.
great story.
Yeah.
So we kind of put that out there. They were trying to. They don't know if they were looking for possibly a bigger name to the headline and maybe the co-host of it.
Yeah.
But we're in the process of that.
That's cool.
So
actually, I would watch that. That's super intriguing. Like my martial arts gym is like a little hole in the wall, and it is. My wife can't even come watch training because it's got a pizza shop on the other side of it. So you can imagine what it smells like in there. But it's
sweat and pizza.
The champions that were made in there. It's just like the story of it's just awesome. So you're just like this. I love that idea.
Well, it's just like going into the Gold Gym in Venice. You walk in there, you're just like, I don't know if you've ever been in there before, but it's just a big giant history of our sport.
Yeah.
Every major player that ever existed in bodybuilding has pictures on the wall.
Yeah.
It's I love life, and we always try to Terry and I both, we try to enjoy life with what we do with our business.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Well, I love that. So they can find you at Big H Homes. Do they search Big H Homes on Instagram as well?
Just at Big H Homes. Everything's Big H Homes.
Beautiful. Love it. I encourage you to go follow Steve, follow his progress. I'd love, when's the competition for Masters?
It's going to be next year.
Next year?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're 11 months out. So,
Awesome. I'm rooting for you guys. What a cool story it'd be for 2 first places, husband and wife team would be.
It would be cool.
Would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be cool. And I've also been doing I've had the opportunity this past year since the documentary came out, doing a lot of Comic Cons.
Oh, yeah.
Traveling around the country, doing Comic Cons, fan fests,
Yeah.
and those are fun. But Terry always says, all you gotta do is sell one home, and you'll make more than you did traveling across the country. And but just part of me just wants to give back to the fans. Yeah. If you think about it, 30 years after the show, and people are still paying to see us. Yeah. It's mind blowing. I never, a small town boy from Wisconsin, that's just unheard of.
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of staying true to the brand of who you are, is like that's still part of your identity. It's still part of your DNA, even though that show's not airing, right? I'd love that you're leaning back into that. Yep. So to wrap up, Enchilada Nation, hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I've actually been really excited to have this conversation. One is, I was obviously a fan growing up, and we played being you in the yard, but getting to know you, and I've been out to your office several times and had an opportunity to go to dinner with you guys and get to know you guys and become friends. I just think the world of you guys. It's really impressive, not only what you've done, but who you are and how you show up. A couple big lessons. I mean, hopefully you guys took notes from this conversation too. The several things we talked about, the one that's just turning in my head right now is this idea of how could someone come in and really measure my commitment to my goals right now if I outlaid my calendar for them to say the activities are consistently showing up. I would put money on you hitting your goal based on the consistency. I think there is this math equation of consistently showing up at the right activities is a direct reflection to your commitment, which is a direct reflection of the results showing up. I just really love that part of our conversation. But Enchilada Nation, hopefully you guys got some good tips and ideas from this conversation. Go follow Steve, and don't forget, go live life on your terms.
And stay healthy.
And stay healthy.